Hey, 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 welcome to another Only Mr. God Knows, episode 3, I think. And today I have a very special guest, Elaine Scattermoon, Eurovision journalist, all around chill person that I've had fun talking to in the DMs for a bit before sitting her down for a recording. Hi, thank you for coming on.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
Excellent, yeah. Peek behind the curtain, Alice from Trash Future recommended that I talk to you. And then it was literally 5 minutes later after talking to you, I was just like, yeah, Elaine rules. Thanks for the recommendation.
I have been trying to get Alice into Eurovision. It's a long process.
Yes. I have my theories about like the different types of people who watch Eurovision. And I don't know where Alice currently sits, but I always do enjoy the person who like spends 364 days of the year talking about how it's like really corrupt and really cheesy and really stupid, and then on the night of the Eurovision final they're like live tweeting it.
Like most of the population of the UK.
Yes, yeah. We don't want to win. We don't want to win. Anyway, we're sending blue. Don't think about it too much. Because okay, so there's lots of things. I think one of the first things we started talking about when we got chatting was Mama Tsh by Let 3.
Croatia.
Yeah. I'm practicing my sh sound. I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious about like you were pretty on one with them there. I'm just wondering if has the obsession with them moved on? Are you still thinking about them? Do they still occupy the brain at the moment?
Oh, they are still fantastic. They're going to make such an impact. I've noticed that people have been overlooking them a little bit because a lot of the Eurovision community don't really take particularly to fun songs in advance, and then they get really confused when the fun songs do well. A good example last year was Moldova with their fancy with their dance song about a train from Chisinau to Bucharest.
Yeah.
And people kept going, oh no, Moldova probably won't even qualify. And then it was like the biggest hoedown. Everyone in the stadium in Turin was just out of their seats, like bopping side to side.
Yeah.
And I feel it's going to be somewhat similar with Let 3 this year. It's an incredible band. This is a band whose first single was released as a completely unplayable plastic disc.
Oh, hell yeah.
Just a disc of plastic, not a CD. Their second single was only released in one copy.
Oh.
And they held on to that copy. This is a band who got charged with public nudity at one of their performances, and their defense was that they weren't nude because each of them had a cork in their butthole.
Yes, absolutely. Perfect.
But they're big LGBT allies, and they've also done songs making fun of Serbo-Croatian Balkan machismo.
Yes, yeah. I did notice that I'm always like, whenever I see a band like this, I'm always a little skeptical of like, okay, are they good or are they good for the really, really conservative country that they're in?
To be fair, a lot of people got quite confused when they first saw them because their stage outfits make them look a little bit like drag Hitler.
Yes, yeah. God, I wish that we could do that. That would just really offend a lot of people. Really, so one of the things I think about with this year's crop is Germany's entry.
Lord of the Lost.
Yes,
which the only Eurovision act to have met King Charles.
That is a fun nugget you kept in your back pocket.
He did a state visit to Germany like a month ago to Hamburg. And while in Hamburg, he met Lord of the Lost. There's videos of him shaking hands with the band.
What? Okay, so I knew about the state visit, but the photos we got from like the office of the president of the Bundesrepublik Deutschland, which is First of all, I should say, not really a powerful figure in Germany. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a ceremonial role. And second, the only person that we legally cannot insult. So keep that in your mind. We love him. But yeah, the photos we got for him was just like, here's Charles and me looking at some potatoes. We went to a cheese factory.
All very normal North German things.
We planted a tree. Yeah, absolutely. And I did not know he met with Lord of the Lost. My God.
It's an unusual strategy to promote your country's Eurovision entry, but maybe we'll maybe we'll see that in future.
New voting rule this year, actually, if you're the head of state, you actually get more points. Your public vote counts more.
I think Camilla is being sent to open Eurovision in Liverpool.
Wait, hang on, really?
I think I did read that somewhere. They're not the Royals aren't going to be attending, but Camilla is going to be going up there.
I feel like the Royals should have to attend.
Forced to, yeah.
One of them.
Live camera on them at all times. See what King Charles' response to Let 3 is.
Yeah. I think we should have a rule that a royal has to attend, but then we get one of the dud ones like Princess Michael of Kent, and she has a really offensive brooch for every entry.
Princess Beatrice.
Yes. Sorry, but the thing I was thinking about though was, I think German. My first reaction to Lord of the Lost was a little bit kind of like a diet Rammstein by committee kind of thing. Which
they've been kicking around for a while.
They have.
I was in the German goth scene when I lived there.
Oh, nice.
And I knew of Lord of the Lost.
Oh, okay.
Mostly their songs are a lot harder than the one they've entered Eurovision with, although that's not uncommon.
They've toned it down.
You see this a lot. Keep of Kalesin, Norwegian death metal band, tried entering their Eurovision selection a couple of years back, and their entry again was very light and soft compared to their usual songs about death and massacres.
Right, yeah.
But I don't know. It's the German entry is a bit. It's very much by numbers. I do like the standard kind of German goth voice that they've got going on there. Your blood and glitter.
Yes, absolutely perfect. That was really good.
But
I live here and I can't even do that voice. But the I think it will do reasonably well because I think it's I think it appeals to the stereotype everyone has of German music or German modern music.
It's the first thing Germany have sent in something like 15 years that sounds at all German, because I've spoken about this before to people, but Germany has a bit of a crisis of confidence when it comes to Eurovision, in that they really hate sending anything that sounds representative of their own music scene. Germany seems to feel incredibly embarrassed about its own music and will always try sending something that sounds as inoffensive, as bland, as mid-Atlantic as possible, which is how you get all of Germany's recent entries, like Malik Harris, who's lovely, but his song was nothingness.
Was that last year? That was
yeah.
No, the one that has lodged itself in his brain was the year before of I don't feel hate.
Jendrik, yes. Germany going, hey, you know what's cool? TikTok. Let's try getting a TikTok star.
We got the TikTok. Yeah, absolutely. We're doing that now. That's where the UK guy came from last year. That's where...
but we picked a singer, not just a random...
Yes, yeah. We didn't pick the vibe of TikTok.
It's like sending... I don't know if you're old enough to remember the YouTube star in inverted commas, Fred. But it's a bit like sending... It's a bit like sending Fred to Eurovision.
Absolutely, it's like sending Fred to Eurovision. I've watched every episode of the Nickelodeon TV series, Fred, where they try to where Nickelodeon were I guess people like this YouTube stuff. Let's see if we can.
Let's put it on TV. What's the worst that can happen?
It wasn't good. Is what happened. Oh my
Fred
God.
has been involved in an unguarded gamer moment.
Has he actually? I find that very believable. The thing that I trying to link back this wonderful conversation to what I was trying to say was if we want drag Hitler, we need to send Rammstein. That is actually who would do drag Hitler.
Yeah. Or send a band who aren't just making themselves light and pretty for Eurovision.
Yes. But yeah, it's interesting you say that's a crisis of confidence for Germany, because I always read it as Germany attempting to do what Sweden does, which is Sweden has always been, or not always, but very recently been one for sending something that isn't like, this isn't what you think of as Swedish. You just think of this as pop music. This is like international top 40.
It's because so much of this pop music is Swedish. Like, Swedish songs have a very distinctive sound. For a long time, Azerbaijan in particular would always just buy Swedish songs, like the ones that didn't get into the big Swedish song competition, Melodifestivalen.
Yeah.
And it was always so obvious because they've all got the same kind of sound. It's kind of like an evolution of Schlager, which is weird that Germany then doesn't do the same thing, because obviously Germany is the home of Schlager. Just send Helena Fischer to Eurovision and you're sorted.
Excellent. Yeah. You have to strike the balance of like, okay, but who's actually willing to do it? Can we get Helena Fischer, or do we have to get like Helena Fischer or whatever?
There have been some big names willing to represent Germany before. I mean, maybe not like pop stars, but
last one I remember is
like In Extremo tried in 2014.
Oh, really?
Not In Extremo, sorry, Unheilig.
Okay.
But again, another really big rock goth band, and they came second to a completely unknown cabaret performer who was selected because she was the wild card for the final, and everyone felt sorry for her.
Absolutely. And yeah, like you say this now, and I'm reminded of the fact that like what are now called Electric Callboy were in the running.
Oh yeah. Well, they weren't. They were supposedly, and then they weren't announced, and then they tried a campaign to get them in, and Germany just said, NDR just said no. We have our artists who are completely all unknowns and with lukewarm songs.
Right. With that, my final kind of take on Germany this year, though, is that it's like definitely the best thing they've sent in years, but unfortunately, it's just a very strong year. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun entry in what it does, and it's going to appeal to certain people. Like, the goth in the audience might just want to vote for that.
Yeah,
so I can't see it necessarily coming last.
Interesting. I saw a Spanish data science company did their like predictive model for this year's results, and they have Germany as possibly becoming last or second last in the final.
I can see it coming third last or second last, sure.
Okay.
It's just it's not quite bland enough to be ironed on for the last place.
Yeah.
If you think of 2015, for example, the UK sent Electro Velvet, absolutely terrible attempt at electro swing by people who didn't know what electro swing was.
Yes.
Made up of a Rolling Stones tribute act and someone who was voted out of X Factor on the first night, and they were awful. But because they had such a quirky entry, they didn't come last. Instead, Germany came last with Anne-Sophie trying a cabaret song.
Yeah, but we're looking at the first year in a while where actually one of the big five don't come last. Isn't that?
Yeah, potentially. It can. But I'm not sure who it would be. Like, maybe if someone like Cyprus comes up from the final, because no matter how many times I listened to Cyprus's song this year, I just can't remember it. It's incredibly bland.
He's very pretty.
That's true. I think that's what they're hoping for. I think they're hoping you just won't pay attention to the... It's worked before, to be fair.
Okay, so I talk about this all the time, and I do not remember the year, the act, or the name of the song, but I do remember it was Cyprus, where one year they had a very attractive lady, which is, okay, not narrowing it down. They usually send a very attractive lady. But she was wearing a white flowy dress, I want to say like knee high, and for the breakdown in the song, she's dancing, but they lit her from behind so that she just looks naked. That left an impression on me when I'm assuming, a teenager. But it's it's been a strategy for Cyprus for a while to send the beautiful people.
Yeah, and it works. It works. I mean, Let 3 are probably going to attempt to look naked, or as naked as they can get away with.
Yeah. There's I don't know. The rumors that I've been hearing is that they're planning. They've successfully secured a tractor for their stage show
Of
and a
course,
rocket.
yeah.
Yeah. So that will be fun.
Do you know why they have the tractor?
Okay, so I know the story myself, but I don't think I've said it on the podcast. I don't know.
So as is surprisingly often the case, the absolutely ludicrous joke song at Eurovision is actually political.
Oh, yeah.
And the reference to the tractor is a reference to how everyone's favorite Belarusian Lukashenko bought Vladimir Putin a tractor for his birthday.
Ah, excellent.
And it's indirectly a song about Putin's invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah. So I knew that. One of the other things that I had heard from speaking to people from like Croatia and Serbia and stuff is that the SHCH sound is like a sound they associate with the Russian language.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of like a bit of a nod and a wink again. Yeah, that gets us into one of the things we talked about in the DMs. I'm interested to pick your brain on. The political rule.
Yes. Oh, the political rule. There's I can't think of a rule that's quite as flexible.
No, yeah, you definitely can't have more than 6 people on stage. Your song has to be X amount of time long, but yeah, you can play it fast and lose the politics. It's grand.
Yeah, like we've got examples of that coming up every year. And it's very rare that a song ever gets excluded. There were some people wondering if Croatia might get excluded this year, but the EBU just waved it through without any investigation whatsoever. I think the last one to be excluded for political purposes, not counting when Belarus sent a song that was literally just government propaganda 2 years ago before they were kicked out the EBU.
Oh,
The last genuine entry that was suspended for being political was when Georgia tried entering a song in 2009.
Oh, I know this
after the Russian invasion.
Yeah.
Called "We Don't Wanna Put In."
Yep.
And the chorus went, "We don't wanna put in the negative mood. It's killing the groove.
Yeah.
It is time to stop the shooting. The dance moves tonight. I'm feeling all right."
Total normal English phrase we don't want to put in. Everyone says that.
But you say that like that's obvious. But then you have like 2015, Armenia sent a song that was straight up about the Armenian genocide.
Yes.
A band called Genealogy, made up of the Armenian diaspora throughout the world, who even like the staging had pictured an apricot tree, the symbol of Armenia, like withering in a storm and then regrowing as the various artists moved to stand on various parts of a world map to show. And the chorus went, don't deny, you and I. And Armenia claimed it was a love song.
That's great. Oh my God. So I'm often like, the thing I think about, specifically with the Armenia song and then Jamala a couple of years later with 1944, I believe is what that song was called.
Yeah, 1944.
Yeah, which is a winning song. One of the things that I often think about is the rule seemed to be kind of like current capital P politics, TM. Like the way that you're kind of like always votes Democrat, liberal wine mom in Washington conceives of politics, which is just like parties kind of thing. Like you can't really name named figures, because it kind of seemed like 1944 and the Don't Deny song, which I forgot the name of.
Face the Shadow.
Face the Shadow, that's right. So metal. I remember that. I as soon as I heard Face the Shadow, I was like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was the first thing that came into my mind.
You send Azerbaijan to the Shadow Realm.
I always got the impression they got away with it because that could just be viewed as historical.
Somewhat, yeah. I
where
mean,
like
the very next year, the Armenian representative got actually fined for waving the flag of Artsakh or
mm,
Nagorno-Karabakh on
yeah,
stage after she made it through to the final.
yeah,
So
and
it's
then yeah,
very sort of wavy what counts and what doesn't. Obviously, you've got Hattery getting a fine for the Icelandic broadcaster RUV after they waved Palestinian
flag,
flags.
yeah, yeah. That's one that's kind of yeah. The list of flags that are banned are super interesting. Then the one that I'm thinking about this year, which is not getting nearly in like again the whole like is it surface level politics or like what is political is kind of the question that comes into because like obviously everyone's paying attention to Let 3, which is a bit on the nose and very current, but then like Switzerland's entry this year is somewhat political. It's like an anti-war song. It just is vague enough that people are just
Yeah,
like
I
that's not
mean,
political.
anti-war songs have a long history at Eurovision,
Yeah.
particularly the kind of vague ones that make out that people just do war for fun. And it's kind of like, hey, let's not do war.
Yeah.
Let's do peace. Let's love each other.
Yeah.
Instead of shooting me, why don't you be my brother? It's that kind of vibe.
Yeah, we'll forgive you for accidentally pressing the war button when I know you meant to press the peace button inside the
And
office.
sometimes it's incredibly on the nose as well. Like going back to 2015, you have
Yeah.
Polina Gagarina of Russia
Mm.
singing a song called "A Million Voices" about us all coming together and
Yeah.
coming together as one, and no more fighting. And
Yes.
it was quite accurately described at the time as what Nazi Germany would have sent to Eurovision in 1941.
Yeah, I kind of lump that into the general category of Eurovision songs that I call the "Give a World a Coke" song.
Yeah,
Yeah, where it's very much about peace, but no one's at fault, and we're all kind of trying our best. Everyone just chill, maybe have a Coke, and it will be fine. Not that there's like conflicting interests or yeah.
yeah, very, very. So the Swiss song is like the Croatian song is more of an anti-war song than the Swiss one, even though the Swiss one is very on the nose about it. Just because the Swiss one is, hey, did you know war is bad?
Hey, it's neutral country Switzerland telling you. Yeah. The God, there was something else. Yeah, there's a handful of songs like that, but the I'm trying to remember. Was it no? It couldn't have been last year because they were banned, but it was the year before. I think. Yeah, you were talking about the like political or like the propaganda Belarusian song.
Yeah.
My favorite story about that though is as I understand it was that was their second attempt at sending a song because the first song was even more egregiously just like
Oh yeah, they did it twice.
yeah,
Like
Belarus is great,
the
fuck those
EBU said,
protesters.
you know, well, we're incredibly forgiving. We really want you here. Could you just try again? Like maybe make it a little less blatant.
Yeah, just
But
sing,
but
sing along.
Belarus, honestly, Belarus were chasing.
Uh,
Were chasing being disqualified, so they could talk about how the West hates Russians.
I'm I'm very surprised. Maybe you've heard some murmurings, but I'm very surprised that we haven't gotten our internal Russian Eurovision alternative yet. That we haven't got like Russia's answer to Turkvision since being kicked out.
I'm not so surprised
Yeah.
because Russia feel that they're skeptical of Eurovision as a whole because Eurovision is, by its nature, very international and will always show off different cultures,
Right.
alongside being so associated with the dreaded LGBT, rightly or
Mm,
wrongly. And
yeah.
the internationalism of Eurovision is a good deal of why really autocratic regimes like in Hungary and Turkey tend to withdraw from Eurovision top down. a lot of Turkish people have been wanting Turkey to re-enter Eurovision for the past decade.
Yeah.
And it's all but confirmed that Erdogan himself is like blocking it.
Interesting.
And a lot of this is because like this big international song festival where for one night borders don't matter and everyone comes together and parties tends to work in the face of nationalism, which is strange when you consider like it's a sea of flags.
Yes.
But usually at Eurovision, people aren't waving the flags of their own country; they're waving the flags of the countries that they want to support.
Yeah, I always found that very alien. Growing up as being like someone who watched Eurovision quite a lot. My experience was it was like always the first sunny day in Ireland, and like there would be like a barbecue outside in someone's garden, then you could come inside and watch as much of the contest as you wanted. But like my experience of it was always like this was definitely firmly into the realm of Ireland being shit after we won a lot. So for me, it was always about finding the song I liked the most out of what's been presented to me and rooting for that. I always found it very alien whenever I heard someone being like, "Oh, Ireland's entry is shit this year, so I won't watch," or like, "We're not going to make it into the final." I was like, yeah. That always struck me as very an alien way of watching it, but I guess it's the way some people do.
Well, part of the great appeal to Eurovision to me has always been it's a window into other cultures, other music, other kinds of song. Mm-hmm. One good example of this is Moldova.
Oh, yeah.
I've written about this before in great depth, but Moldova always tend to send something that's eye-catching and true to their own national culture. Essentially because it's the only chance Moldova get as Europe's poorest country to actually make any impact whatsoever on the international stage, because for the rest of the year, people might not even realize that Moldova is a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Eurovision, they can get like the eyes of the world on them. So they'll go out of their way to put together something that's typically Moldovan. And therefore you get a lot of like the music that people tend to associate with Eastern European weddings. Lots of brass, lots of dancing. Quite upbeat, quite folksy. And you're not going, like, especially like in the UK, you're just not going to hear that music anywhere. And you've got incredibly French pop, like Spanish salsa. You've got like Balkan turbo folk.
Right.
And then you sometimes get like even stranger things like Latvian doom metal.
Yes. Yeah.
Or you get like Czech Afrobeat we had a couple of years back. Unfortunately, that was the cancelled contest.
Oh yeah, that was one of the
Benny Cristo.
Yeah. We did a live stream of all the songs and held our own Eurovision when the one got cancelled.
Did Iceland win?
No. No, we opposed Iceland on moral grounds. No, who did we were? I think in our group we were big Little Big fans that year.
Yes, Little. Yeah. To be fair to Little Big, they were asked to like represent Russia again the next year, and like given they'd been effectively blackmailed into doing it the first time, they got the notification from like the Russian Ministry of Culture that yes, you are representing Russia at Eurovision. Of course, you're going to say yes, or and the second year they were just no. And they've since like left Russia. They've denounced the regime.
They fucked off to LA as far as I understand it. Yeah. Which is fair, absolutely. If you can get out, get out.
Well, it's just as well, really, because could you imagine how awkward it would have been if Little Big had represented Russia and won?
That would have been that would have been a strange year. I mean, my prediction before the show got cancelled was that they would be like a televote favorite, but probably the jury would stop them from winning.
Yeah, I thought the same. I thought they were going to smash the televote. And for a long time, they were, by a long shot, the most watched Eurovision video on the Eurovision channel. That's starting to go down, but...
Yes, yeah. I love doing that kind of like trying to do those predictions based on like all the kind of like OSINT stuff we have now from Spotify and And my
Oh, you get so much of it. You get so like there's a huge Eurovision betting industry. I'm not
oh
sure
yeah,
if you're aware,
oh
but like
absolutely.
it's like and honestly I can see why.
Mm,
It's as long as like you keep in contact with the contest and check the how the rehearsals are going and things, you can usually have a pretty good idea of who's going to do well, like at least as good if not better than the bookmakers.
yeah.
It's just the people who tend to do this tend to be the most dry, unpleasant people you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, fair.
Like the head of the largest Eurovision betting site was like a massive UKIP supporter and considered that the Tories were too far left.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
he didn't tend to make many friends at parties and in the press centre.
No, especially when that's something you can very easily learn about him, I guess. Like that to me signals the kind of guy who tells you these things very unprompted.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the betting industry stuff is always super interesting. I pay attention to the odds as best I can, but I also know that until like the Monday before the contest, when like rehearsals start happening on the actual stage, it's like basically meaningless because it usually changes pretty radically at that
Oh
point.
yeah, you've always got the entries that sound really good recorded, and then when they're performed live, they're a complete mess, and
Yes.
vice versa.
Mm,
You have Eleni Ferreira from Cyprus in 2018, whose song Fuego was basically ignored right up until the contest, and then she arrived in Lisbon
yeah.
looking like Beyonce, just strutting around the stage, performing so strongly that we all thought that she was actually going to win. Unfortunately, she didn't,
Yeah.
but came close.
She did. This is okay. So this is something that I put out there that I feel like usually gets a bit ignored, and then I feel like is the driving factor a lot behind a lot of surprises is the horniness factor, uh,
Yeah,
because the last year in particular, um, I did a live show again, and the room was very kind of like team horny, namely because last year, surprisingly, Albania and was it Latvia or Lithuania who did the instead of meat, I eat veggies and pussy. Uh,
Latvia,
yeah,
yes. Oh, I hung out with that band. They're
hell yeah,
surprisingly lovely people.
excellent. um, the those two songs not making it through to the final, I think it created an atmosphere in the room of people wanting the horny vengeance of like where are our horny songs, because
Yeah,
The Albania song was particularly horny, but the staging, my god. Um, so then with like the largest cheers in the room were for any time Spain got points with slow mo.
with Channel. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm often like I'm often a big believer that like horniness like can just go very far. And this is separate from like we've sent the beautiful people, but we've sent the beautiful people and also they're going to like start doing some splits and stuff, whatever people like. I'm not entirely sure, but
Particularly if you're on further in the evening when people have had a couple of wines, beers, vodkas, whatever.
exactly. Which is okay, leads me to I think my most controversial take of this year's Eurovision, which is if the staging is anything like the music video, I actually think Poland's entry will go quite far because
I hate to agree with you, but I mean, Blanca is the song is nonsense. The song is okay.
yeah.
It sounds like it's made up as it goes along, and the music
Mm,
video looks like it's made up as she goes along. She's just like
yes.
posing on walls and smiling at trees and things.
Yeah.
But she can't perform it live. But
No,
that
it's
doesn't matter too much because they usually drown her out with backing singers.
interesting.
And the Polish diaspora is big, and the Polish diaspora are very patriotic.
Yes.
And this year, we have got rid of the juries for the semi-finals. So that means that the diasporas have all the power again. And
Mm.
yeah, I can see, unfortunately, Blanca making it through over some entries that deserve it a bit more, just because, yes, Polska, Polska. And also, just the horniness factor.
Yeah. It's mostly because going back to like the criticism of Germany this year, the metal strategy I think works when you're the only remotely metalish song that year, but Germany has to compete with like Finland and there's one other. I guess the like Slovenia entry is doing some like rock kind of stuff that's actually quite put together.
It's rock, yeah. The band Joker Out are very. There's like their original like music video didn't make big waves, but then they released their original concert video, and it's a bunch of like mid-20s, very attractive guys who somehow managed to perform the entire song while maintaining eye contact with a spinning camera.
Oh, absolutely. They are okay.
So yeah, the horny factor is definitely going to work for Slovenia.
Because okay, so I've managed to not mention it up to this point, but I think people who listen to me talk about this stuff know that my theory of understanding the Eurovision audience is purely with the phrase "fuckable grandson." I'm so glad you're laughing at this and not just like horrified. Because I need to strongly imply it's not my grandson. Because there's often a contradiction, I think, with the audience, and I think this will go to discussions of like how much this contest is viewed by some people as being very LGBT, and then maybe there's like contradictions there because while there is a half of the audience that I would call the fuckable audience, the people who like make plans to actually watch this contest, like the plan for tonight is to watch the contest. They want spectacle, they want the beautiful people, they want the dancing. And then you have like the grandson audience who are like, I'd say primarily older people in rural parts of Europe who didn't have plans tonight. And if plans suddenly appear, they won't watch the Eurovision. And I often kind of think like to win, you have to appeal to both of these people. And I think Slovenia is a whole band chock full of fuckable grandsons. They're very attractive, but they also look like they'd be good boys, and they would write, they would call.
So this tangentially touches on one of my own theories, which is that people don't vote for their favorite song. People have an idea of what a winning song is. And there's probably a song that they enjoy more than that. But they feel that they feel almost moral duty as the audience that they should vote for the winner. And they will wait for something that says, I am the winner. Which means, like, in 2016, for example, I very much doubt that people were, like, switching off Eurovision and going to immediately download Jamala's single and dancing around to her wailing about the genocide of the Crimean Tatars.
Yeah,
instead, the songs they were listening to were Russia's Sergei Lazarev and Bulgaria's Polygonova. And they enjoyed those songs the most. But when Ukraine started singing about like war and rotating on stage, and they had the huge graphic of the tree blossoming behind, people went, that's impressive, that's meaningful, that's powerful, I'm going to vote for this. When people saw Conchita and they had all of the build up, the anticipation about, this bearded drag queen could win Eurovision, people were like, that's a good story, I'm being part of this story, I'm voting for her.
Yeah.
And so many years you have this 2017, Salvador Sobral for Portugal. This beautiful, like this incredibly ill man singing this song that sounded like it was from a Disney cartoon from the 1930s. Just this beautiful, timeless piece of Portuguese jazz. And people are like, oh, this is like nothing else I'm seeing tonight. I'm voting for this. In none of these cases, this is people's favorite song. But people will vote for a song that says, I am the winning song. And a lot of the time, they will be happily told what is the winning song. They'll wait for the commentators to say, this is the favorite, or they'll listen to who gets the real hubbub beforehand. It's very rare you get a shock winner out of nowhere for this reason, because people, by and large, want to operate within that framework. Even if, they'll vote for, they'll decide to vote for Sweden this year because it's Lorraine won in 2012 with Euphoria, and she's back again this year. So clearly, it would make Sweden match Ireland's record. That's a good story. I'm voting for Sweden. Then they'll switch off Eurovision and they'll go and download the Austrian or Finnish song and bounce around their room going cha cha cha.
So yeah, that is super interesting because I definitely remember with the Portuguese entry, the year they won. I definitely remember a lot of like the commentators and people online constantly talking about like, oh, Portugal is the only Western European country that hasn't won yet, or like they're the old like longest in the competition that hasn't won yet, or something like that. They held some
Yeah.
sort of like title
Yeah,
in that
absolutely.
regard,
Yeah.
and there was a bit of like, oh, now it's their turn, almost. The And it is super interesting. That is my kind of understanding of that, and I like 100% agree. But my kind of understanding of that is that Eurovision, for I think most people who don't pay attention to it, in 26th of April, like they're like getting ambushed with 40, probably 26 songs because they're only watching the final.
Yeah,
And
usually.
yeah, and maybe something that you kind of like on the night, you actually find out doesn't have the same staying power. Or you come to that realization later. Like one of the songs that I think is going to be kind like have that kind of story this year is Belgium's entry this year. There's a chance that they won't make it through to the final, but like I can totally imagine that in like next year or 2 years time at various like Eurovision pre-parties, that's going to be like an absolute club, like a dance floor filler kind of
Yeah,
song.
yeah, Gustav and his incredibly wide hat that just seems to grow every time I see it.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
yeah, it's one that people dismissed early on, and then it just gets stuck in your head. And then you
Yeah.
realize you're dancing to it, and you really don't mind.
Yeah, actually, turns out I like fun. Shit.
And like it's often like so often the song that ends up doing best from a Eurovision is not the song that wins.
Yeah,
Last year,
fair.
for example, to everyone's great surprise, one song has done far better than all the others, outsold them massively, outsold Ukraine,
Oh,
outsold Sam Ryder, outsold Chanel,
really?
and it's Rosalind of Armenia with her song Snap. That went massive on TikTok. She performed all across the
What?
US
The,
and is by a long shot the best performing song.
oh no,
But in the contest itself, she finished, I think, 20th.
yeah, absolutely. Like I remember this. So I'm very much. Okay, this is an interesting insight because I'm very much, May 14th. I shut off. I don't want to hear. I'm gearing up for next year. I don't want to hear anything else. But like I really dismissed that song as like, oh, this is some Mumford and Sons shit. This is some stomp clamp hay stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was not in the mood for that, but fair enough. Fair deuce to her.
She's very Americana. Yeah, she's built up like a big career now, which is good because she's one of the people I interviewed last year
Oh hell yeah.
before the contest, and
Yeah.
she was talking about wanting to like be a bridge between Armenian music and American music.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, good for her. I thought just like it made it big on TikTok. I think it does speak to something that's happening in the wider music industry, and something that's definitely going to affect Eurovision is just TikTok is an important platform for musicians now.
Oh yeah, like that's where we found Sam Ryder.
Yes, and also it's where Denmark's entry has come
Oh
from.
yeah, he's got a huge following in South Korea apparently.
Oh, okay. No, actually, based on his visual aesthetic, that does not surprise me at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Um,
I think he's even got Hangul on his clothes during his music video.
mhm. Everyone I've interviewed so far who's like more of arrives at this fresh faced, the first question I always ask them is like, "What age do you think he is?" And they're like, 13.
Yeah, he's way older than he's making himself out to be.
Yes, absolutely. And that's working because my initial gut reaction to him was like, "Go on, my beautiful Faroese son." I immediately was like, "Yes, I'm your dad. Go, go, son, go."
And he looks like he's about 6 months into HRT. Honestly, I keep expecting like there'll be like an announcement after the contest or something.
Yes, oh, that would be so good. That would be brilliant, actually. Um, okay, so I think this we've talked a lot, and I could probably talk for hours about this. But I'm very interested in your predictions and your personal top favorites of this year, if you have them. Because yeah, I'd love to know.
My my dreaded conclusion that I keep trying to find reasons why it won't happen is that the rain's going to win again. because Tattoo's got a big stage show. I'm not sure if they're able to take like what's been referred to as the Loreen Panini press to
The
Liverpool.
concrete sandwich, yeah, absolutely.
But it's very much it's something that Sweden did in 2015 as well. It's kind of like a blast of fast food. It's like a Big Mac of a Eurovision entry in the sense of there's not much substance to it, but it's so sweet and salty and rich. When the first time you see it, you get overwhelmed. And there is the narrative about Lorraine, like ridiculously successful Eurovision contestant, Euphoria, like constantly topping polls of people's favorite Eurovision song, coming back to Eurovision. And I don't want it to win because I don't think it's the best song. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as Euphoria. And honestly, I'm a bit tired of going to Sweden for Eurovisions, much as they do a good job.
Yeah.
But I struggle to see. I'm really hoping that Finland managed to do it. I can see Finland possibly doing it. It's just that Carrier might confuse people a little bit at first. He's a bit like the spirit of Tumblr come to life. He sort of looks like he can't decide whether to mug you or fuck you. And
the Baltic Sea makes a type of guy is my attitude to.
It's such a type of guy. Yeah,
because he does remind me a little bit of like someone who would be in a Little Big music video or someone who would collab with Tommy Cash.
And he's exactly like that off camera as well. Like I've been watching some of the pre-party performances, and a lot of the other artists, they get on stage like breathe a bit, then get into character, whereas Carrier is basically like crab walking onto stage to begin with. So I would love it to be Finland. I could also see Spain surprising people because Blanca Paloma has nailed it every single performance she's done, and there's like a hypnotic quality to it. Certainly I can see a lot of the juries going for Spain because her vocal performance is incredible and it's unlike anything else. And under the right circumstances, I could see that doing surprisingly well.
Yeah.
Plus, there is an ongoing narrative that Spain should have won last year and they were cheated out of it. And
oh, right. Okay, sure. That's super interesting because to add to all of this, I know I mentioned that I'm not like a huge fan of kind of taking your kind of like your petty nationalism to Eurovision. However, as an Irish person, I need Sweden not to win. Us having the record for most wins is the only thing I can hold on to. And like, I know the momentum is with them. They're going to win next before we win, but just not now. Not today.
And I want Ireland to do well. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the Irish song. It's very much Eurovision paint by numbers this year. Yeah. But the band discovered that their manager had been tweeting transphobia and fired the manager. And they're currently getting a massive Twitter storm from the absolute worst of UK transphobes, all piling onto the band and like completely drowning the band's mentions and their record label. And the band is just sticking to their guns, and honestly, fair play to them. So I do wish them well.
The unfortunately that kind of
the wild youth.
Wild youth, yes. Unfortunately, that kind of what's usually memed as the turf island politics is definitely spreading to Ireland. I'm seeing more of that kind of like confronting what is it, like drag queen story hour stuff happening, and it's getting very disgusting.
I keep thinking how differently Conchita Verse would play out these days, let alone Dana International.
You say that, and like Conchita Verse was not that long ago, but it feels like a completely different world.
It really does. Yeah. So I can understand, but also like Sweden winning would be boring. Like, give me a complete surprise win. Like, have Austria win.
Yeah, having a song that's been like the favorite, the bookie favorite since like what, March or February, even just like winning is kind of a bit. It's a bit of a letdown, all right. Then I actually do want to ask you, because you're probably paying attention to this, because I have family in Spain. One of my co-hosts is from Spain, as much as she's from Catalonia. She doesn't really want to admit she's from Spain. Which I understand completely. But I want to ask you about Belladrome, actually, because it's been only 2 years of this national selection process, right?
Yeah, okay, so like Benidorm Fest is incredibly successful.
It has been, yeah.
I'm so shocked. It seems to be that Spain decided to basically take Italy's Sanremo contest, which is like so long standing. It's the contest Eurovision is based on.
Yeah.
And like Melody Festival, and is a much bigger deal in its home country than Eurovision itself. Yes. And kind of adapt that to be a lot shorter, so it only takes place over 3 nights.
Okay.
Still late into the night because it's Spain and they don't believe in bedtime.
Yes, absolutely. Well, bedtime is 2 p.m.
they have like a good range of like stars going to it. Like maybe not their biggest names, but big names in Spain, like bands that sell, and a wide variety. And they put a lot of effort into the staging. Like the band Megara with their song Arcadia this year was just incredible. I had like robot girls bouncing around the stage, and like the dance break was a full DDR performance. That's Dance Dance Revolution, not Deutsche Demokratische Republik. That would have been interesting. I want to see Hörnicke at Eurovision. But it's just, they're trying so hard. I think that's what makes it really come across, that Spain are now actually trying hard.
They flipped the switch of we care now, kind of.
The UK are trying hard as well. I don't think it's going to pay off this year anywhere near the dividends it did last year, unfortunately, because we're trying to make May Muller dance as she sings, and she can only do one or the other.
Oh, interesting.
But,
okay, I didn't know that.
But the UK is actually trying, and Spain are actually trying, and it's really good to see, like particularly with France, again, doing their best.
Yeah.
And really, it's out of the big 5, it's just Germany.
They're the weak link of the big 5 this year, for sure. The thing I always think about with Italy, though, because Melodifest in Sweden.
Yeah, Melfest, yeah.
Melfest, thank you, is huge, and like people really care about it. But people also seem to care about the Eurovision, whereas we've had now a couple of years in a row where the song with the most Spotify listens was always Italy's entry, and that did not reflect how well it did in the actual Eurovision. And the only conclusion I've come to is just Sanremo is just bigger than the Eurovision itself.
Way bigger.
Yeah.
Like this was very apparent when we went to Italy for Eurovision last year, because they kind of didn't treat it as a priority. They kind of organized Eurovision in their spare time, and it was a bit of an organizational disaster.
Okay, fair enough. I hadn't heard
like their focus was very much clearly on Sanremo, and Eurovision was just considered to be. And a lot of Italians as well were saying that they watched the Sanremo over like 1 week in February, and it's a long undertaking as well. It's like 6 hours a night for 5 consecutive nights.
6 hours a night, Jesus, fair enough.
But they don't then watch Eurovision itself.
Yeah.
And that's quite common there. Like Italians certainly don't really care about Eurovision. Certainly not in the way that the Spanish or the Germans or the Brits do.
Yeah, there's a really interesting. So with a lot of the big 5 songs this year, I still kind of go to they're successfully appealing to what the rest of Europe thinks of these countries musically. Because I know lots of French people who live here in Berlin, and they really complain when like France sends like chanson. But
this year they're sending disco Edith Piaf.
Yes, it's so good. The song makes me feel so sexy. It's not horny in the same way. That,
no,
a horny song
it's sultry. It's sultry.
Yes, that's the word.
It's incredibly sultry. Yeah. Like more sultry than you'd expect from someone who's singing with an Oreo on her head.
Oh wow! Hey, she looks good. Well, I don't know what to say. But like chanson, that kind of, and this kind of like disco stuff is definitely like what the rest of Europe thinks of when they think of France musically.
Yeah, and Spain obviously sending a modern interpretation of their own traditional dance music. It's got that very kind of salsa.
Yes, but that's also the other thing that you'd hear from Spain and the whole legacy of Franco, because as far as Spanish people are concerned, the song that they've sent this year is they sent Andalusia. They sent the like southern state or atomica of Andalusia. And a lot of Spanish people get very annoyed, and it's a legacy of Franco, that the rest of, in much the same way the rest of the world views Germany as just Bavaria. Yeah. The rest of the world just views Spain as just Andalusia.
Oh yeah, there were a lot of complaints last year that the Galician act didn't end up winning.
Oh, yeah.
Whose name I won't attempt to pronounce because I will mangle Galician.
Yes.
They all changed their minds when Chanel Chandler, got to Turin and had a really great stage show, and then they all forgot that they were supporting the Galician entry. But
actually, yeah, fuck my politics. Let's just fucking win. So it's. But the thing that I keep thinking about with this year's entry from the UK is that the UK has actually finally figured out what the rest of Europe thinks of them musically, which is.
Oh yeah, we're sending the kind of things that appear in the UK charts, because as I've been saying to people for a long time, it's not that people in Europe hate the UK. It's actually completely the opposite. People in Europe love British music, but when they're listening, to a lot of Ed Sheeran, Adele, Churches, Coldplay, and then we send Electro Velvet or Engelbert Humperdinck. Then it's very, very obvious that the UK just doesn't care and isn't trying.
I often feel like the UK is confused, broadly speaking, is confused about how to depict itself internationally, because I want to say that the stereotype of what the UK is different whether you ask an American or whether you ask a continental European.
Oh yeah.
Because I think the American would expect something like the electro swing or whatever. It's all the dandy gentlemen, it's Sherlock Holmes, it's the red buses and stuff. And then you ask Europeans and they describe the musical vibe that the chain store Boots gives off, or Love Island, basically. I think is
exactly. And we just haven't been tapping into that. Although I will also say that we have not sent a Scottish entrant in something like 20 years. The last time a Scot entered a Eurovision contest was in the French national final 3 years ago.
What? As the French?
He tried entering the French national final because there was no chance he was going to represent the UK.
Fuck me.
It's just constantly, we just keep sending English people.
I also loved how much you tapped your R for that whole speech there. No, absolutely. That's actually, because you have a deeper history of this, and this is something I've also kind of my bugbear. Has Ireland ever sent an entry that was Oscuelga, in Irish?
Yes, once.
Okay, once.
Just the once. Yeah. I can't remember exactly what year, though. It was sometime around. It wasn't too far off Donna's win in 1970.
Oh, right. But
it was it's going that far back. But even when there was the language rule at Eurovision, which is where you were forced to sing in one of your country's national languages, the fact that everyone understood English meant that if you were England, if you were the UK, Ireland, or Malta, you would just basically send English every year, because why wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
You get a massive boon. And a lot of why the UK and Ireland did keep doing so well is because they just kept sending songs that people could understand.
Yeah.
And that's not a truth that people necessarily want to admit to.
Oh yeah, no, I'm the first to admit that we were definitely beneficiaries of the language rule, where our streak of wins comes from. And unfortunately now we have a very condescending view, I think, to Eurovision and what Eurovision music is.
Yeah, RTE need to do what the BBC did last year, basically. They need to have a complete rethink of how to approach it, because they're still stuck in the idea of Eurovision as being what it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
Just very, very, very cheesy. There being such a thing as a Eurovision genre. Rather than sending a good piece of music, you send a piece of music written specifically for Eurovision. And that's always a mistake, because you're always just going to come across as incredibly bland to people. Yeah. It's better to send something incredibly divisive than to be bland.
Yes. Okay.
And, if in doubt, just send a dance song about Edgar Allan Poe, like the Austrians.
Okay, yeah. So I fucking love that song.
It's probably my favorite single entry this year.
For me, I'm still kind of undecided on what my personal favorite is. It's between them and Cha Cha Cha.
And Finland, yeah.
Yeah.
It's either the Cha 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 or the Po Po Po.
Yes, because
it's the Chapo. That's a different podcast.
That's a different podcast. No, as soon as I got to like first listen the bridge of like 0.03, and I was like,
0.003. Yes,
this
it's
is what
another
this is
example.
about.
It's another example of like concealing a political message in a fun song.
But
Because the rest of it's all po 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 po, and then you realize, oh, actually, like it's a song written about how even if you like bring Edgar Allan Poe back, you're still going to make nothing off Spotify because Spotify takes all the royalties money.
That this band is going to start their own new chapter of the RAF and kidnap the CEO of Spotify.
It's actually not the first time Austria have sent a song criticizing the music industry. They sent a bizarre song in, I think, 1978.
Oh shit!
By a band called Schmetterling, and the song was called Boom Boom Boomerang.
Oh, okay.
And the chorus went boom boom boomerang schmattery dan. Didgeridoo, was it kangaroo? Didgeridoo boogaloo. Ding dong, sing this song.
This is a rich tradition.
And like the verses were all about how the music industry just takes all the money it can from joy, and it's more hippie than anything else, but it was still like a bizarre protest song.
So then,
with an annoyingly catchy chorus, just to warn you, if you do decide to go and look it up.
Yeah, I will, definitely. The punk kind of like teenager who listened to punk music is just always, any song that criticizes the music industry is just catnip for me.
Yeah.
So I guess then the question I have for you is, who are your guys? What are your personal 5 or like 3 this year? Because we talked a bit about like, we got into a little bit of that, but we talked mostly about like predictions. I'm kind of curious.
My personal phase. Well, Finland has to be straight up there.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's an incredible like merge of metal music and dance music.
Yes,
and it's really difficult to describe to other people, which is usually a mark of a really good song. And Carrier is just absolutely infectious personality on stage, even if he looks like a Pokemon gym leader. And then you have like the Austrians with their incredibly good, and they can perform it live, which I was really worried about.
Ooh, I haven't seen it live yet at all. Yeah, but fair enough.
And they're really hot when they put on the suits, that too. So yeah, the Austrian song is really good. And what else? I do like the Australian song. The Australian song didn't really win me over at first, but it's got the incredible like stadium rock kind of song. And they're closing semi 2, and I imagine they're going to be hallmark to open the grand final if they qualify.
Yeah, that was the other metalish song I was thinking of.
Yeah, they have the one bit where they do the big growling, even if it comes out of nowhere. They try and do every single rock genre in about 3 minutes.
Well, it's because it's a progressive rock band, and it has the stereotype of progressive rock or progressive metal band, which is they've been going for the better part of a decade. They've cycled through 1 million members. Their bassist is just like a very old person wearing like a Hawaiian shirt. And it's just like, this is just what I do on the weekends.
Have they made a big deal over the fact the main singer's German?
I don't think so. I haven't seen anything.
Born in Germany, like moved to Australia.
Oh, this is the first time I'm hearing
like several decades ago.
If it's, I have not heard that at all. I haven't heard like Germans talking about it either. So interesting.
Like speaks German with like a proper German accent.
Interesting. This will definitely be something that the one of the commentators will pull out of their back pocket on the night.
Still Peter Urban.
I don't know who it is. I'm okay. I'm one of my most controversial opinions in general Eurovision is I'm not a big fan. I always go for the YouTube commentatorless stream.
That's fair. Fair.
I know a lot of people I would watch it with really liked Graham Norton, and I was just like, he just makes the jokes the room made a couple of seconds later.
Yeah, and he always has a weird idea of which songs are going to do well, so he'll pick like Azerbaijan or something and goes, "Oh, this one's been hotly tipped behind the scenes."
Oh, interesting.
Like, no, it hasn't. I don't know where you're getting that from, Graham.
Oh, the government of Azerbaijan.
Oh, almost certainly. Yeah. Like, that is why we don't have juries with this year's semi-finals, by the way.
Because of last
Azerbaijan year. Azerbaijan just keep bribing them. Yeah. It's literally down to Azerbaijan.
We were popping off in the room when like they were so high up on the board just after the juries came in, and they got like 3 public votes. And we were like, yes.
Yep. Yeah, standard Azerbaijan things.
Any other kind of weirder personal faves, because for me, uh, uh, um, the one that I really like that I know is going to completely eat shit is Aya by Lithuania or Latvia. I'm struggling to remember now.
Oh yes, yeah, Sudden Lights. Yeah,
Sudden Lights,
Hiya.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
that's got a good vibe to it.
it's so pretty. I love it.
I do catch myself singing it to myself.
Yeah, and it's going to
Yeah,
eat
it's
shit.
very. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Latvia don't know how to do Eurovision. Bless them.
Interesting. Yeah, but do you
But
have any a weirder personal favorite?
Norway could be quite
Oh,
good.
okay. Yeah,
Her
yeah.
name is she,
She
Queen of
Queen
the
of the Kings.
Kings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Czech Republic, if they
Mm.
learn how to perform that live, would be good. The live's been a bit underwhelming, but otherwise, it's very hypnotic.
The music video is what I've routinely described as some Kingdom Hearts shit. I
Oh yeah, yeah.
I want to fight those
Just,
purple guys. I want to swing my keyblade at them, kind of thing. Yeah,
yeah, it's very JRPG aesthetics, like fight the
absolutely.
final boss.
Like
Um,
if they can bring any of that energy of the music video onto the stage, I think they'll do quite well.
yeah, and like I have to give a shout out to Ukraine as well. Like Tvorchi have sent like a really good R&B song.
Yeah, which
And
is
it's not often you get R&B songs at Eurovision. Plus,
mm,
Tvorchi won the Ukrainian televote by a long shot, despite the fact he is a Nigerian immigrant to Ukraine and
yeah,
black, which is a big deal for Ukraine.
because that's a R&B. You're right, is extremely rare in Eurovision. I'm struggling to remember anything that came close to it. I guess Macedonia did something that kind of reminded me of like
Uh,
90s UK garage one year. Like
Montenegro did send dubstep one year before dubstep became popular, and it did terribly.
the astronaut
Igranka.
suit.
Yeah,
Yes,
Igranka.
yeah. Absolutely. That was in my Spotify rotation for a bit after that show. Um
But I think R&B is going to get more popular, particularly because it's gradually moving eastwards across Europe.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm still waiting for like there being a somewhat successful rap. But like I'm very skeptical that rap is a genre that can suit
We've got some
Eurovision.
rap in Armenia's song this year.
We do. We have a little bit of I'm MC Armenia and I'm here to say going on.
When the rest of the song is her mumbling literal inspirational quotes sourced from Tumblr. That's literally where they're from. They even got them wrong.
Hell yes. But
Like
no,
the quote they went for is drink smoothies in neat cafes, and they misread the text in like the inspirational post they were lifting the lyrics from. So it instead says drink smoothies in near cafes.
God bless them over there. God
So
bless them.
Armenia says support your local cafe, support your local
Yeah.
industry.
Eat out to help out. they're a couple of years behind over there, I guess. No, it's yeah, that versus like Iru from Georgia is like chat
But
GPT lyrics.
oh my goodness, yeah, is that even that is in English? I
Yeah.
just keep forgetting it's in English.
Yeah, because it is definitely just don't pay attention to the words. Just love the melody. Just enjoy
Oh,
it.
classic Eurovision.
Yeah, absolutely. Um Oh, actually, sorry. I spoke dirty about rap, but I guess technically last year a rap song won.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Yes.
Yeah. Shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just
Kalish.
yeah,
Kalish
Kalash
Orchestra.
Orchestra.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the technically the first R&B winner.
Yes.
I mean, it's not necessarily a political winner like people have said. It's more a sort of show of solidarity.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
it would still have finished top 10,
oh yeah,
definitely.
it was a good song.
And Ukraine staged their entries really well. And
Mm,
the honest truth is that there's very rare ever an obvious winner at Eurovision. There's a bunch of good songs, and one
yeah.
of the good songs will win. And usually
That
you're like, fair enough.
yeah. I mean, I felt like those comments were a little bit unfair because like Ukraine is usually a very very solid entry every year. Like the year previously, like Goa was like top 5 or something like
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
everyone remembered Goe as well. Like people forgot Måneskin's entry, but people
Mm.
remembered Goe's.
Oh yeah, it's like one of the things that lasted. Yeah, the and then the other little fact that I pulled out of my back pocket regarding like last year was the act that Ukraine was going to send because Kalush Orchestra was their like
Oh
second
yeah,
choice.
yeah.
she was not set to do well at all. If my understanding, or like not like win well, like
Oh yeah, it was a really like nationalisty song as well, like full
yeah,
on like map of Ukraine in the background of her song.
and yeah, and then ironically, she was taken down by like a weird pressure campaign by Ukrainian right wing trolls. Is my understanding of it? Of like we
Yeah,
think,
there's been a lot of that. Like
yeah,
Ukraine could easily have won a couple of years ago with Siren song Maruv, but
right,
that was forced to withdraw.
okay,
When was that? 2019,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, yeah, which is it's a very it's an interesting landscape to play, and obviously I think I do wonder what the bookies are thinking at the moment, because Ukraine is third favorite, and I think they're thinking that there's going to be another show of solidarity this year.
I think I'm not sure if they're thinking that or they're just getting a lot of bets of people who do think that, and that's what the
Yeah,
odds
yeah,
reflect.
yeah. That's. I guess that's who I'm describing the they to, the people who are making the
I
bets.
mean, I can't see Torchy doing particularly well, unfortunately, because as much as we all pretend it's not a thing, a lot of Europe is pretty racist and will not
Yes.
vote for a black artist.
Last year, or no, not last year, the year before, it basically seemed like you got punished for having a black person on stage.
Absolutely, yeah. Like all
Yeah.
the black artists finished
It
towards
was
the
the
bottom.
Netherlands. Like
Yeah,
we did not like that song in the room, but it like came like fifth last or something. I was like, that's not fair.
singing a song in Strand and Togo, like
Yeah.
national language of Suriname, and Malta as well. Like Destiny, who was like whispered to possibly win, ended up
Yes.
doing way worse than anyone thought. Like
Yeah,
Big Black
yeah.
Woman.
I somewhat predicted that, but not for racism reasons. The but sorry, the thing, like the reason I forgot that like Kalush Orchestra was technically a rap song last year was, as soon as I hear rap Eurovision anymore, the thing that just like my eyes go white, like I'm becoming a warg, and the first thing I remember is San Marino's Flow Rida verse.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Which is
And they did really badly as well. Like
they
shockingly badly given they got Flow Rider in.
yes, yeah, that
Like
was
San Marino's top performance is still Serhat, like everyone's favorite Turkish dentist game show host. With
shit,
Say Na Na
really.
Na in 2019. Yeah, yeah.
Fuck me. That
Who
sounds
I have his phone number
hell yeah.
because in 2016 he entered with a really slow ballad that he was trying to do a Leonard Cohen style song, but it didn't
Okay.
work at all, and people
Yeah.
started describing it as the worst Eurovision entry ever, which it was good, but it certainly wasn't that bad, and he took it personally and started feeling sad.
Oh.
But like he'd recorded like a really campy disco version of the song on the single, and I
Yes.
started a campaign to get San Marino to switch to the disco version because the disco version was incredibly camp, and it was a kind of so bad it's good kind of song rather than just being bad,
I
and it was a
remember
lot of
this.
fun.
Yeah.
And like he did get my mail and was like, I do have fans out there who love me, and decided not to withdraw and instead did switch to the disco version. And
Hell
then
yeah.
when I met him a few years later, he like gave me a hug and thanked him for like stopping him from leaving Eurovision.
Oh
And
hell
then
yeah.
he went and got San Marino's best ever result. So as far as I'm concerned, I deserve, the national citizenship of San Marino.
Yeah. Give me so I can do all my money crimes in Italy.
Exactly, exactly. It's a nicer climate than here as well.
Oh, absolutely. And you just need to move some money around. It's fine. The yeah, no, that's I distinctly remember this as well, because this is whenever I explain Eurovision to people, of like, you have to submit your song, but you basically submit it as like lyrics and sheet music, as I understand it. So reworks are possible. And that's the example I always give of like how this kind of like ballad switched to a disco version, but it was technically allowed because same lyrics, same notation. They just changed like what instruments and tempo they played it at.
Yeah, you can change to a certain extent, although they did do the shift on the very last day, like just before the head of delegation meeting, where you have to submit the songs.
Yeah, okay.
Which is why every year people who don't know Eurovision will start complaining, oh, we should change the entry in April or something, not realizing that it's far, far too late to do it at that point.
No, Eurovision season begins at like Christmas. You've all been asleep. The one I used to be able to do was when Georgia held national selections. The time difference versus Georgia, the UK, was so good that you could start playing it like with beers the last hour at work. You just take over the TV at work, and it's like we're watching the Georgia national final. And it's a lot of like, I don't understand what they're saying, but god damn, is their alphabet cool?
Oh, why not? Yeah. Not as cool as Armenia's, but
oh, interesting.
I spent a month in Armenia, so.
Oh, that's fair. That was.
Looking forward to Armenia winning. We can all go to Yerevan. It's lovely this time of year.
That is, yes, yeah, I would like that too. That was one of when I did my first pass of all the entries this year. That was the first note I took of Armenia, is like, because I have the subtitles on, so I can just like when I want to check in on the lyrics, and then it switches to Armenian. Like the only note I wrote down was like, yeah, the Armenian alphabet looks pretty cool. just surprises you with it. It's like, oh yeah, hey. All right. Well, thank you very much for all of this. Is there anything that you want to impart with our listeners on like Eurovision wisdom? What is your what's the important insight you have on this year, past Eurovision in general? I'd love to.
I think it's that Eurovision is often overlooked as something that brings together so many different disciplines, because where else can your knowledge of geopolitics in the South Caucasus be just as valid as your understanding of, various genres of doom metal?
Yes.
or like how to stage, or like TikTok demographics. It just brings together so many different things. And therefore, for people who are just obsessed with all kinds of different topics, it really ensures that no matter what you're interested in, there's usually a Eurovision entry, or at least some aspect of the contest that will appeal to you. And it's a shame that people don't really think that far, because people are too used to the old Terry Rogan rant of, oh, it's all rigged. It's all nonsense. It's the idea that if like Latvia send a joke entry or like a fun novelty song, that means that Latvians can't do music, rather than, hey, Latvians send joke entries too. I mean, if the UK sent the Wurzels, it wouldn't mean that the rest of Europe thinks that the UK is only capable of sending, farmers singing about combine harvesters. There's a lot to celebrate about it. And ultimately, it's almost like a vision of a better world, in the sense of, for that night, borders only matter in the sense of what team you're on. And that's all. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're a queer couple in Aberdeen, or you're a large extended family getting together in Tirana, Albania, or, whether you just started a young family in Sweden, or you're a college student in Yerevan. Like, all of Europe just comes together and enjoys the same show and talks about the same show together. And there's not really anything else like that. And I do think, like, we should defend Eurovision more than we're doing, because, hey, it gives us a lot of fun. And let's face it, we need things that are fun and positive and full of light and laughter in this world.
Hell yeah. That's great.
Plus, what else gives us that many memes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We rely on Moldova's entry to just keep making memes, because they made Epic Sax Guy, and they've been just like, we need more memes. We need to keep doing this. All right, thank you very much. Is there anything that you want to plug before we go? Obviously, links to everything that Elaine has done in the show description, but anything you want to shout out right now?
I'm not currently working on anything, but I say you can follow me on Twitter for as long as Twitter continues lasting, which at the current rate might, not even last until this podcast is out. But I'm at Scattermoon on Twitter, and I have a specific Eurovision account as well for all you Euro heads out there, at Elainovision.
Shit, I did not know this. I will be adding. That was a plug just for me, I think. All right. Thank you very much. And we will catch you next time. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.